Hello everybody. So my intuition came out to be true. Strategy did a small buy last week, and that was a busy week. That's understandable. They only bought $180 million. But what I am pleased to see is, of course, they're done with the 2024 common ATM. So they spent that last bit, and they must have spent this quite quickly. It's actually mind-blowing when you consider how much Bitcoin was bought in such a small amount of time. STRK. Let's talk about STRK. STRK is important because it's ramping up. And you may remember it started with 6 or 7 million on the STRK ATM. And every week we keep ramping up on STRK. So last week, STRK, we raised 37.5 million. 37.5 million was last week. This week, so last week as announced today. So announced today, we've raised 51.8 million. So week over week, we've moved from 37.5 million to 51.8 million. What that tells me is that Saylor is educating the market on STRK, on the STRK ATM. People are picking up the STRK shares and they're getting this strategy, and this ramp is what I like to see. If we want to see a world where he does as much of the common as he does the preferred ATM, let's say half common ATM, half preferred ATM, he has to ramp STRK, and I'm pleased to see that. And one of the things I'll be on the lookout for, of course, is the announcement of a 21 billion ATM for Strife, which he has not started yet. And even if it doesn't do an ATM, maybe an offering, right? Maybe do another Strife offering. That's also something that I look forward to. The point of this video continues yesterday's point when I talked about Torque. So $1.42 billion Torque, $180 million buy. How do I get to $1.42 billion Torque? Well, let's use the numbers, because, and my viewers will pardon me for not recalculating this, because we're actually close enough. This is a 1.98x price to NAV. MNAV is a 1.98x, and the examples in the presentation, the corporate presentation on Q1 earnings, these examples are for a 2x MNAV. So you'll forgive me for just copying and pasting these examples, and as an illustration, you'll forgive me for a 0.02, because that's a lot of recalculation for essentially the same thing. So how does it work? How much yield, how much money did we earn on a 10-year basis, over 10 years? How much do these buy equal to over 10 years, right? That's the BTC Torque, and that's assuming a maxi ARR. And the maxi ARR is assuming that Bitcoin goes up 30% every year for the next 10 years. That's what this BTC Torque of 6.9 and 10.4 are based on. They're based on the assumption that Bitcoin is going to go up 30% every year over the next 10 years, which is roughly Saylor's assumption, because in the 2024 model that he published on GitHub, his very long-term return target is 29% ARR, but that goes beyond 2035 in his model. So that's very much in line with his model. So let's assume that. Let's assume his model. And let's look at how much money that is, right? Capital raised. So we raised, with the common stock ATM, we raised 125 million common stock ATM raise. The BTC gain today, because we are trading at essentially a 2 MNAV, the BTC gain today at year zero, today the BTC gain, what we made, is 64 million. But fully torqued, what did we make over 10 years? Torqued, when we assume a 30% BTC ARR, that's actually closer to $885 million. $885 million, right? Do we really still think dilution is a bad thing when, if you look at the BTC Torque, you get to $885 million of value created for the MSTR shareholder out of only $128 million capital raised? In my view, not at all. It makes me love the ATM. It makes me love the dilution. And For those who don't like dilution as much, well, guess what? Strike has less dilution. There is a little bit dilution in the 10% perpetual option embedded into Strike, but that dilution is smaller on Strike. And so let's do the same calculation for the Strike preferred. So we raised 51 million. Let's call it 52. We raised 52 million, right? This past week. BTC gain is 41.44 million right now at year zero. That's better, right? The BTC gain is well over half. The BTC gain is about 80%. That's better. But torqued, fully torqued, what do we get? We get 539 million, assuming that Bitcoin grows at 30% year over year for the next 10 years, and removing, this is important, removing the fiat, removing the 8% dividend in the fiat. This model removes the fiat from the BTC dollar gain. So the BTC dollar gain over 10 years, which is essentially BTC Torque, the BTC dollar gain over 10 years for the 51 million of STRK preferred that we issued on the ATM, on the preferred ATM, that should yield us $539 million! Exclamation mark. This is quite outstanding. So the small buys of this week, the 180 million, is a very, very small buy for Saylor, right? When torqued, they actually equal to 1.42 billion over a 10-year period. So our expected BTC dollar gain over the next 10 years, if Bitcoin actually achieves 30% BTC ARR, should be 1.42 billion, not just 64 plus 41 billion. Those gains today, right now, are at year zero. Those gains are going to compound, and they're going to compound at 30%. If you assume the BTC Maxi model. And again, if you're a skeptic, as Saylor says, if you're a skeptic and if you believe Bitcoin is not going to rise at all, you just have this as the gain. 64 and 41 is the only gain if you're a skeptic. But most people who buy MicroStrategy are not Bitcoin skeptic. They are Bitcoin bulls. And so this is why this torque number is much closer to the reality. It's much closer to the reality of these market operations. So still loving dilution. Still wanting more dilution. Thank you, Michael Saylor. Anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is just entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.